it, go.
Hey, don't interrupt me. Gosh. Anyway,
Are you gonna
look
start
at
rapping?
you guys both just sip it away already.
Rapping? Rapping, like G-Unit
Oh.
raps.
All right. Anyway,
I'm not
knock
doing
it off, both of you. Done. 20 seconds wasted. Anyway, welcome back to ABA Generalized. It is all three of us today. No one decided to take the day off. But we are going to talk about ABA in the community. We had talked about a couple episodes ago of different environments that you can practice ABA, and we decided the community kind of needs its own episode. There's a lot that goes into community. I know personally, like I've had positive and negative experiences in the community, and then also all of the insurance paperwork that Anne and Erica will kind of get into of getting community services even approved to, take place and all of that. I'm going to kind of get started with just my positive experiences with community. I have seen it really work. The children need help with, going to get a haircut at the barber shop or, the hair salon or whatever, and being able to help them in those environments. Also, just like appropriate behavior in the grocery store and not eloping away from, mom and dad, and or not throwing a tantrum in the grocery store. Appropriate car behavior, not screaming and throwing things at the mom or guardian or whoever while they're driving. And again, I've seen all of, bless you.
Thank you.
I've seen all of those things work for community. Pool safety, I've worked on with clients in the summertime, being able to go to the pool with them. It's been a lot of fun because I've also had a lot of like cool experiences with my clients, and it sucks because you never know what behaviors are going to arise while you're out there. However, like I've been able to like go to the farm and pick fruits and vegetables with my clients, and I've definitely gotten to experience a lot of cool things while working on behaviors. So those I think are all of the positives of going out into the community. I don't know if you guys have experiences with that and that you want to touch on.
Yeah, I think most of the experiences I've had in the community are pretty positive. I think I would say the majority of community outings have been grocery store based. Whether it's helping the client like follow a grocery list and find those groceries and paying for them, or helping parents like kind of do parent training in a grocery store and using a token board and figuring out what they're going to earn at the end of the trip, while maintaining safety like in the parking lot and in the store. I've also done like eating in restaurants, and what the behavior that was fun. Kind of awkward though, because I would never get anything to eat. Like I've done it again, both where like I would go with the client and like we would practice taking our order, and then practice paying. And then I would go with parents and the client and practice like, what does it look like sitting at the table? Are we climbing under the table? Are we doing this? Are we, where we have to stay, and like trying to brainstorm like how to keep the kids busy when we're waiting for food, because that can be really hard. And I've also done kind of like sports, not like official like school sports, but extracurriculars that parents would pay for or like sign their kids up for. I would go and support and like help with participation or like following directions and being with typical peers and like trying to do not really social stuff,
like
but
a
just
structured activity with
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that with like little kiddos that they do like pull out for like soccer or music or whatever that like their parents could sign them up for. That's always interesting because I don't know if with your guys' experience, but my experience has been my kid is actually like listening and like willing to participate. And then there's like neurotypical children that will not participate. And the like counselor, whoever's running it's like looking at me. I'm like, that's not my kid. I don't know.
I can't help.
And I mean, I think that also goes into like when you are creating goals and stuff in general for like helping kids in the community, it's like thinking about what their peers are doing, right? Like I say a lot to my techs, and G probably heard this a million times when we were working together. If you see another kid doing the opposite of what our kiddo's doing, we can't really redirect or say like our kiddos acting up just as much as like the other kiddos in the classroom or the community or whatever. Well, we can't redirect our kid because they're doing exactly what all the other kids are doing. It's very much typical then, right? Like it's not typical, but I guess it's on par with like what is appropriate.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially in the community, I feel like parents are trying to hold like our clients like to a higher standard than their peers. And I think that causes a lot of friction, especially in the community, because like the kid is 2 years old. He might play with his food at the dinner table. Like again, and that's age appropriate, or he might, have a small tantrum that because he's upset that his crayon broke or whatever. Like those are, for 2-3-year-old client, like that's appropriate behavior. So we also have to manage those expectations.
Right. Well, that also, see, you guys always spark stuff with me that I've seen on Instagram or on the internet. You guys gotta stop doing that because now I'm about to like bring up so there's a wonderful company named ABA Visualized, and they are always making like visual things of like how to teach and parent train and all that stuff. Well, they had like a post a while back that I think I had sent to you guys, but anyways, we could put it on our story or something so that people can see it because it's wonderful to know like what is typical for our kiddos versus like or like what's typical in general, right? Like tantrums, how common are they? And I literally have this thing pulled up right now, and it talks about like what age is appropriate for X amount of like tantrums or throwing, aggression, biting.
Yes, I found it.
We see that all the time with all of our kids. So it's like looking at what is age appropriate, right? Once again, and that also goes into like the community aspect, right? Like that kind of ties in a little bit more because yes, like our kiddos having a tantrum, but look at like other kids their age. Are they gonna have a tantrum over not getting a lollipop? 100%.
I love this. Yeah.
So yeah, we can absolutely post that to our story or something. We don't get anything for, recommending their visuals or anything like that, but I love them.
Sometimes a good shout out is just needed.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I think it's for one thing, it's good to support other people out there too to get their stuff out. And I think it's good for parents to see like, oh, okay, like just because my kid has this diagnosis doesn't mean that that's why they're having the tantrum or that's why they're biting or that's why they're doing this. Like you can't blame everything on that diagnosis, and it's hard to like see outside of that, especially if like you all you know is autism, or you don't have another kid to like kind of compare what the norm is.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and I mean, I literally showed this to a parent the other day, and it opened their eyes to it because they're like, I don't understand what happens with other kiddos. And I was like, listen, me neither half the time because I don't have kids myself yet. And if at all. And I think that it's always helpful to find these resources or these things that say like, this is what is going to occur with whatever milestone, because you can Google it. Pretty sure that's you've said you Google half the time anyways.
Yeah, I'm sure at this point our listeners know, like I have a 7-month-old, and the amount of times I actually have a tracker now. We have family members that are physical therapists, and he sent me over a link, and he was just like, yeah, like here's just, just extra resources, whatever. And I have to check it pretty regularly because I'm like either having a panic attack that he's not doing something on age level, or I'm like, what is going on? Am I overthinking it? I have to like bring myself back because for the last 5 to 8 years, I've literally only worked with children with special needs. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what a neurotypical child is supposed to do.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, like when I had my daughter, I literally, and I was an RBT at that time, I had like my own copy of the VB map, and I would be like, okay, she's this age, like these are the things that she needs to know. And like I would practice with her. That was a good tool. And I would also I would kind of use her as like, not an example, I can't think of the word I want to say, but like when I would be with clients with the same age as her, I'd be like, okay, like I know she does this, they should be doing this too. Or like even they would be doing things like reading at 3, and that's not normal for a 3-year-old, guys. And I'd be like, wow, like this is blowing me away. So like it can go either way too. Like you can see like the needs, but you can also see like, wow, they're really ahead, like super ahead in this. And you just type that in the.
That was
of course it was.
Sorry, guys. If anyone
for those listening,
we're on a tangent now.
Trying to get everyone back on track without having to announce it.
If y'all have been listening to us for a while, I'm the reason why we get off topic almost every single time. Almost every single time. I want to say the other percent of the time.
I will say that was an appropriate tangent. That was also important to say, but back to community based.
I just saw ha 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 out of my corner of my eye because I have half the screen with like our doc and then the half with our faces, and I just saw ha ha, and I'm like, what did I say?
No,
yeah, and I saw it too. I looked over. I was like, oh, whoops, my bad.
Anyway, back on topic. Somebody talk about insurance-based community.
Well, yeah. So
community-based insurance. That I should have said that backwards. Anyway, continue.
Insurance requirements in the community.
Sure, whatever. Someone talk about insurance and community in the same sentence.
Well, I can make a sentence. Insurance and the community, they either intertwine or they don't. So for example, I have at least down here, a lot of our requirements include, and I'm sure it's in Pennsylvania too, but I can't really remember. A lot of our insurance requirements include writing community-based goals. Now, not every insurance that I work with will allow you to go into the community with your kiddos. So sometimes you have to get creative with your goals in terms of like, well, I want to work on this, but we can't go into the community. So how can we do this within their own space, right? So I'll write community-based goals, but contrived settings. So I'll be like, oh, so-and-so will work on stop go in their backyard or in a contrived setting to better work on and generalize into the community later kind of thing, or something along those lines. I probably wouldn't write community because some insurance flag your plans. If you write community, it's great. It's lovely. I can go on and on about that, but not another tangent. Anyways, but when you're writing these community-based goals, you also want to take into consideration of like safety, health, and learning, right? Like always, whenever you're writing any sort of goal, it's always socially significant. It's always going to be health, safety, and learning purposes. We never want to teach a kid to do something for the sake of you just wanting to teach them that, right? Like it's never just, it's always a purpose for it. It's always socially significant. We had a meeting, not this past Friday, the Friday before, and I was talking about natural environment teaching, and I had to train not train, but it was like part of our roundtable where the RBTs were all there, and I went around to different groups and I talked about natural environment teaching, and I talked about how incidental teaching includes, if you wanted to go across the street to the playground, for example, that is one of your goals, to go and play on the playground with peers. Well, that's across the street. Okay, well, we don't have a goal to cross the street. We're going to use incidental teaching now. So we look both ways as in incidental natural environment teaching, and then we cross the street and we praise, and then we go play and do our goals. So I like to write my goals to incorporate those community outings, even if it is just going to the playground. But it's more of that like what is socially appropriate, significant health, safety, and learning? Is the kiddo a loper and a loper, where they're going to just start, or are they going to stay with you, right? Like kind of thinking of goals like that. Um, yeah.
No, I think that that's important. I think like a lot of our community goals is working on just general safety. Obviously like our kiddos, like we don't want them to run off. We don't want them to just drop in the middle of the street. Like really using all of our strategies to safely get them from point A to point B. A lot of the times, you know, the kids struggle with the transition. And so, hey, how do we get them to, we had Jonathan and Jonathan's mom on, and that was something that I had to work with. Like the library was next door, as we, talked about on that episode. And I didn't have to cross any streets. I barely had to cross. I had to cross like grass. Like I didn't even have to go on the cement, whatever. But I had to make sure he was going to walk with me. And then once we got there, I wanted to give him some space. But if he was going to just take off or go hiding somewhere, like I couldn't give him space. And so we're working on, hey, listen, thankfully he was old enough that I could just be like, listen, if you want your space, then these are the rules. This is what we got to do. So yeah, I think a lot of our goals in the community end up being safety, recall goals. Obviously, there's some other ones that we can add in, but I feel like that's the majority of why we go out in the community. Is like something had happened and they weren't being safe, and we gotta reel that back in.
And also ensuring generalization. Yeah, sorry, Anne.
Yeah, generalization. And also, I think you had some experience with this. I have too, about like car safety, just like traveling in the car, because kids are smart and they can get out of the car seats.
Yeah, and I even had like an older, it wasn't my kid specifically, but it was a kid within the company that, I was friends with his technicians, and he was an older kid, but very little vocabulary. He, had a device, but again, that comes with its own issues and whatever. And turns out he was having medical issues, and that's the reason that these behaviors were coming up. But he would just start flipping out in the car. He would be self-injurious behaviors. He would then try and throw his talker like at the driver's seat from the back seat, which obviously was not safe. And like slow road, busy road, whatever road you're on, like it's still like beyond not safe.
It's scary.
So yeah, I mean, and that is a good point. I didn't even think about like getting out of the car seat, because I personally never experienced that. But yeah, just like throwing the driver. And
yeah, that was something. I had a client who wanted to work on that, and we didn't get to work on it before I moved, but that was a concern. Like, they can get out of their car seat, they're standing up in the car, not safe. And like, is the awareness there? Is it not? I mean, does it even matter at that point? Like, they're doing it, and we need to figure out how to decrease that, how to stop that. Like, that can't.
Did you have any goals like ready to go for?
No, that wasn't even brought to my attention until like right before I moved. Okay. And I was like, oh, I mean, we should probably work on this more than like going grocery shopping. Like this, we need to do safety first. So, I mean, hopefully it's been like, we were trying to look at more adaptive car seat. Like there's specific buckles you can get that like, you can, like the parent can like kind of lock, and like they have the key. I know some people who have that, and there's also like a harness you can put directly on you and like wear backwards. Like I know some people who have that too. And like it can latch into the car seat. It can latch into a school bus. So there are options, but it's like everything's money. Like you have to pay for it. Insurance isn't going to cover that.
Yeah. I think that is also an issue, is like trying to figure out how to have them be successful without, you know, having to, do we have to spend that money? Like, can we try other things before kind of like, that's the word, or at least whatever, what am I trying to say? It's the last case scenario.
Last case. Yeah. And it's like, it's more restrictive, right?
Yeah. Can we do it? Can we?
And like, how are you going to be able to get that harness on,
Right. Well, and also like looking at, once again, why we take ABC data, trying to figure out the function of the behavior before, it becomes something other than what the actual function is, right? And so like what we talked about in previous episodes is the function of behavior can change. Just because it's attention one day, it can be escape the next, or like if they're it changes based upon the reinforcement that they're getting. Yep. Or it can be both. It's a bunch of things, right? And that's why we also rule out medical before we can even implement anything. So like in those cases, so like G, you had mentioned like, the kiddo having a medical concern, and that's why they were having those meltdowns and stuff and engaging in behaviors. Well, that's why, once again, we say, hey, you might want to look into medical right now. Like, I understand before I can implement anything because of these high risk behaviors.
And what you had just said about like the ABC data too, like that's how they ended up figuring out that it was medical, is because they kept looking at the antecedent, and there was no clear antecedent of why these behaviors were happening when they were happening. Yeah. Like the mom at that point had ABA for, again, he was an older kiddo, so had ABA for quite a while now, and she knew about ABC data. She knew how to take it. She knew all of that. So even without us being present, she was able to look at the antecedents, and that's when they were like, this doesn't, like, this is nothing on this makes sense right now. Yeah. And that's why they went the medical route. But I don't know, I think as we started this all, I think there's a lot of positives in community-based, and I think that these kiddos can learn a lot. But unfortunately, I have even experienced like the negative side of it. And I think probably why insurance pushes back as much as they do with these is I did have not one, but multiple families that would kind of take advantage of me coming into the community setting. We'd work on car safety. So like, I wasn't driving myself. I was, riding in the car with the client, sitting there with my bag of tricks, handing him and her just like toy after material after, let's run these questions and, WH questions in the car to keep them occupied. And because I was, also trying to model for the parent of like, listen, this is what you can do in the car. You could be driving and be like, what's your name? What's your favorite color? What's your whatever. As much as it's not fun to be talking the entire time, it helps. But I've had parents, as I said, take advantage of that, and they'd be like, oh, we'd warn the client, be like, we're going to the grocery store. We're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 items. And after that, we're going to go home. And we'd do really great in the grocery store. He or she would man to go home. And then mom would be like, oh, well, we have to stop one more place. And the kid would start to engage in a tantrum. And she would get frustrated or whatever. And I'm like, you told him you were going home. And that's why he's engaging in this behavior, is because he doesn't feel like he was listened to. This is also now too much for him. We're working up to doing multiple stores in a trip. Like right now, we just need to get through the grocery store and only can do 4 items. We can't even do a full shopping list yet. So I had several times that I was actually like, the parent ended up being late to like take me back and like drop me off at the house, and like I didn't have access to the car, so I was either late to another client or like late to go home to my family, which really sucked. So I had that happen quite a few times, or like, oh, I'm just gonna bless you.
Did you get paid for that?
I mean, yeah, I would have to bill them extra, like more hours, because I would adjust my time, whatever. But again, I'm that they're missing out on, you know, other kids' services. And then guess what? Come Friday, I might not be able to do our whole session because, or, you know, whatever day of the week, like I've used another hour of our services. So I don't have that to bill on the back end. So now we can only do a 2-hour session on Friday rather than 3 or whatever the case may be. So like, yeah, yes, I was getting paid for it, but at that point, like I didn't even want, like, I just wanted it to go the way that it needed to go. And even like setting the expectation with the parent time and time again, it would just continue to happen. So I don't know, that's like, I guess my negative with the community, because I think it can get taken advantage of fairly quickly of, oh, well, now I have an extra set of hands that knows how to deal with my child. Let's go do all of the things I'm normally not able to do.
Yeah, like I get it from the parent's perspective of like, let me take advantage of this and like try to get as much done as possible. But then it's like, that's not like,
it's not effective. And you also
to the client.
Right. And again, you're wondering why the client is now engaging in certain behaviors. It's because like we had a schedule and now like their schedule doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's being
especially with a lot of those clients that I'm speaking about. Like we really, you know, we depended on that visual schedule. We depended on that token economy. And that kind of goes out the window once the parent reroutes. And I'm stuck juggling, like, I don't even know how to act on my feet right now because now the client doesn't care about my visual schedule because it's already a lie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then you'll lose that trust with the client, and that you really need that. Like you're damaging the rapport for what?
Yeah. Yep. So I also had that happen with hair cutting, but that's for a different day. Yeah, I think that's where the parents' buy-in is very important as well, of like, listen, this is not going to look the way you want it to look for a little bit. We got to work up to that. That's the end goal. You know, the end goal is take them out, do as many errands as you want, do a full grocery, be flexible, be able to stop somewhere, but we're not there yet. This is the beginning of it.
Yeah. Meet the client where they're at.
And it's
not where the parents want them to be.
Yeah. And working through like that transfer of control too, from like you to parent of like, we're able to work through these things together, but how are you going to be able to do this without me here?
For sure. I feel like parents kind of like forget that is the end goal. Like the end goal is for me to not, for me to be away. This still happens.
You know, I say this to parents all the time. You know, I'm always looking at you putting me out of a job. That's what we want. I would love to work with you and your family for a long time, for the long haul, whatever.
Yeah.
But ideally, you want to put me out of a job. That is the end goal. And I think that scares parents a lot. So they try to like grasp on to that stuff. It's like, oh, like they're really having this problem in the community. Can we work on this? And so like, we're like, okay, yeah. Or they're having this issue socially, or, you know, whatever it may be, to ensure that we stay a little bit longer. Not all families do that, but there are some families that I have worked with in the past that, you know, will say like, hey, you know, can we work on this? I'm like, we could try it and see. And if they, you know, are doing well with it, then we don't keep it for very much longer. But anyways, so I think this was a great conversation about ABA in the community. I definitely don't have as many experiences as you guys when it comes to community stuff. I feel like as a BCBA, I do have a little bit more, but it's, once again, it's writing those goals and trying to implement in different ways and getting creative about it, and ensuring that generalization. But we hope that you enjoyed this episode of ABA Generalized. You know, if you want to be on our show or you have any questions, comments, concerns, please email us at aba.generalized.podcast@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram at ABA Generalized the Pod, YouTube ABA Generalized, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Until next time, folks, and we will have Challenges of ABA part 2 coming up as well. So see you later, guys.
ABA Generalized, the podcast, is not providing professional advice. Please seek a professional in your area for specific advice and support.